I founded my company in 1989. And originally we were focused only in Tuscany, and then little by little we expanded all over Italy. And our template is a very Italian template. And when I say that, it's all about, having fun and enjoying bicycling and being very, very collaborative and I think our group spirit is really fun. So, and it's a lot about education. So wherever we go, just like in Italy, just like in Europe, even in the Northeast, we like our tours to have a very educational template in addition to a gorgeous template, gorgeous scenery template. And we'd like to utilize local guides as much as possible. So, which is why Dave is here tonight. He has helped us design this tour in the Adirondacks. His brilliant photography is all over our website this year in terms of our domestic trip. You can move to the next slide, Dave.
Okay, will do.
Like those visuals.
Let's go here.
So by the early 2000s, we expanded all over Europe. We started expanding our tours over Europe. But we kept our base and our focus always was in Italy. This trip and this photograph on the right is the gorgeous island of Sardinia, one of my absolute favorite destinations. And we've been going there since the early 1990s. And then that shot on the left is a really good example of the Ciclismo spirit that we bring to all of our trips, which is a lovely meal in the evening. This is in the middle of the day, actually. And this is a lovely picnic in Tuscany. So we really, my goal has always been that a bicycle ride should be a lovely experience, an invigorating experience. So we want people to have a positive time, an educational experience. So that's always been what we've been about. I think we need some people to mute their microphones.
Yeah, I believe it's Dennis.
Yeah, if you could move, that's great.
Take it over. The screen doesn't show me the things that I can use to.
I think we can mute him too. I think you can mute him, can't you, Tiffany?
I don't know. I can normally, but not
Okay.
when it's like this.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Okay.
Great.
There we go.
Okay, another beautiful picture of the island of Sardinia. I can't get enough of that island. But pedal your passion is our byline. And when I say pedal your passion, when I invented the concept, what I really meant was when you go on a bicycle trip, I really believe that not only do you bicycle, but you bring whatever you like to the bike ride, right? So if you love food, you pedal your food passion. I have people that are in search for the best cappuccino or the best gelato, or they can't wait to dinner time, or maybe you're pedaling your family passion and you bring your family along with you, or maybe your passion is cycling and you're just going to go after every single extra loop that you can. So basically what I love about cycling, and what all of you probably do too, is that cycling is really one of the most amazing activities that really connects all parts of who we are as human beings, I think. So without getting too poetic, I'll stop right there, but I could go on and on and on. So anyway, I wanted to take a minute to introduce, so we have got some of our amazing team here. Before I forget, that left-hand shot is on the Eroica, which is a great trip that we do to the Eroica bike race, bike event in Tuscany. And that's at the Castello di Broglio. But we have today we have our domestic team here. We have Tiffany. I don't know if you can see Tiffany, but Tiffany is probably, if you've been talking to anybody on the phone about the domestic trips, it's probably been lovely till Tiffany, who lives in Keene, and she's great. One of our recent additions. And there's Darren, who manages the back end of our operations, as well as all kinds of other amazing things, guides and schedules and all that tough stuff. And then I'm not sure if Christine Classen has joined. Christine's here, yay! Christine, so Christine Classen, well, she goes way, way back. Christine and I, before I started Ciclismo, I led a bicycle trip around Europe with 14-year-olds. And that was from Rome to Paris. And Christine followed, and she was one of the tour guides that worked for the same company that I did. And she did that trip. So Christine and I go back more than 34 years, but she did guide some trips for us in Italy. And this year, Christine, maybe we can talk at the end, but it would have you say something at the end of the presentation. But Christine has developed an amazing trip in Quebec this year. So we're really excited about that. We'll be putting that on our website, hopefully by the end of the week. And also she will be doing a presentation about Quebec in a few weeks. So we're putting that on our Ciclismo page. And then last but not least, the presenter of tonight is Dave Krauss, who is our current super duper guide of our domestic trips. He's led almost all of them last year. He's a great, just super guide, great cyclist, great personality. But I'm going to tell you, as a photographer myself, he is one of the best cycling photographers by far and I've seen and I've used and worked with a lot of them. He's amazing. So the tough part about Dave, if he's on your trip, if you just kind of stop him to take, stop, I don't want my picture taken anymore, Dave. But I tell you, if you let him take your picture and you say, send it to me after the trip, you will get that's sort of a bonus about having Dave on a trip. He really, great angles, great shots, great, he is a professional photographer. And that's sort of, as when we met, that's what we hit. We're over a beer up in Vermont. That's where the two of us really hit it off because we both love photography. So he's presenting tonight. Without further ado, Dave, you want to take it away?
Well, first, Lauren, thanks for that intro. That's a pretty high bar to meet for me here tonight, but I'd like to thank everybody for meeting us here tonight. This is my second year with Chiclismo. And I think I fit in real well to the operation because I'm basically doing here what I've done for quite some years on my own, which is I'll go to places that interest me and ride, and I invariably find neat stuff. And then I love to bring my friends back to show it to them and just come have a good time. And that's essentially what I'm now getting paid to do with Chiclismo, which is great. Now, I've been riding in the Southern Adirondacks since 2008. I was dating a woman who had a cabin up there. Sadly, that relationship did not last, but my passion for the Adirondacks has lasted. And I've been riding all over the place near North Creek, Chestertown, the Lake District up there. It's about an hour and 20 minutes from my home. And it's just a great place to ride. There's so many things there that you've got beautiful scenery. You've got some wonderful attractions. You've got no shortage of things to do up there. There's some great places to eat, some really nice places to stay. And above all, there's some very friendly and nice people up there. And so it's really a pleasure for me to be able to design a tour that's going to bring people up there and let them enjoy the same things that I've been enjoying for some years now. So with that, I'm just going to jump up here. If I can get back into PowerPoint here. There we go. We're going to go to the first slide of our presentation. And this is a spot that's on one of our routes. These are the high peaks. I like to call the Adirondacks the greatest place to ride that you've never heard of. And that's because it really has surprised me about how many people in the Northeast really don't know a lot about the Adirondacks. It's a very unique area. It's the largest, if I'm remembering correctly, the largest state park in the lower 48. It is larger than 4 or 5 different national parks put together. It's larger than the state of Vermont. And it is developed over the past 150 years as the New York legislature saw fit to protect the area and make it what they call forever wild. Now, in the 19th century, the area was settled and much of it was logged or farmed. And since that time, once the park was created, various portions have been allowed to go back to wilderness. So now it's a fairly unique patchwork of both public and private lands, with different lands having some different usage definitions. But it's also not particularly heavily settled these days. So it's pretty easy to get away from the small towns and villages and get out into some little used back roads and have a really great cycling experience. And one of the places that we go that's kind of on the back roads is Tahawas, which was originally a town that served a titanium mine in the high peaks. It used to be an iron mine, but that was shut down because the miners found that their iron ore was contaminated. And many years later, it turned out that that contamination was titanium oxide, which is titanium ore. So they switched over to titanium, and the mine at Tahawas ended up supplying most of the titanium that was used by the US in World War II. And in fact, Doug there, standing on that rock pile is a pile of tailings from the mine. There's lots of friendly people. There's lots of nice places to go to ride, to have a beer. or have a glass of wine, have some food after your ride. And this place is called The Hub. It's in Brant Lake, and we'll be visiting this on our day 5 ride. We'll also be visiting the McIntyre Iron Furnace. This was the original iron mine up there, and it was built in 1849, and it was only in use for about a year until they discovered that they just couldn't make a profit doing it. You really have to appreciate this is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And in 1849, it was a huge achievement to build this furnace, to build this mine, and to get this thing going in the middle of nowhere in the Adirondacks. These are my friends Dan and Roxanne, and they are also at a spot that's on one of our routes for this tour. It's on Beaver Pond Road, just north of Brant Lake. Just a beautiful view. And behind them and to the right, there is a nice little cemetery that is just a stunning little location that I like stopping at whenever we're up there. Over in North Creek, Kate Hartley, a local artist over the past 10 years, has created this North Creek Mosaic project, which we're also going to visit. In fact, our first 3 days lodging is in North Creek. And this mural, made entirely of slides of tiles like this, is a full city block long. It's absolutely incredible. She's created it with the help of hundreds and hundreds of volunteers, including many tourists who came to town, who would walk up to her and ask her what she's doing, and she would say, "Hey, would you like to help me out?" And so they did. And on the right, that's me with my giant pencil. That's at the Adirondack store. Now, you may remember from school when you were a kid that you used pencils that said Ticonderoga on them. Well, they came from this area. The pencil factory was in Ticonderoga, and the graphite for the pencils was mined from Graphite Mountain, which is on the west shore of Lake George. These are other friends, Jen and Don. This is North Creek Falls, and this is also on one of our routes. It's on our day 4 route. And as you can see, it's a great spot to stop for a picture. This is near Friends Lake, which is where our second lodging place is at the Friends Lake Inn. This is Friends Lake Road, and you can see it's isolated. There's very little traffic. The roads are great. Just a fun place to ride. So let's go through the whole trip a day at a time. So let's start with day 1 in North Creek, where you get settled, get acquainted. We're going to go for a ride on day 1. No goals here. It's not a race. And we're going to ride over the Hudson River. You can see it's a beautiful spot. That's my friend Paul in that picture. We're staying at the Phoenix Inn and Resort, which is in North Creek. We'll be there for the first 3 days. And so let's find out a little bit more about day 1. Here's another shot of the mosaic. There are moose in the Adirondacks. I have to be honest with you, this may be the only moose that you see while we're up there, but they tend to pop up without warning and in unexpected times and places. So I'm not going to make any promise either way. And also on our first day's ride, we're going to be stopping at Riparias, which is on the Hudson River, and that's what you see in this picture. This is the South Shore. We're going to be coming down the hill on the opposite shore and crossing over this bridge to a rest stop there at the train station. This is, it just, how many times can I say? There's so many beautiful spots that we're going to ride through. Another shot from day 1, another one of the nice woodland roads that we're going to be exploring to give you a chance to get acquainted and get acclimated and warm up your legs for the rest of the week. And this is on Bird Pond Road, and that's Maxum Mountain in the background. And we stopped there to get a quick picture. Maxum has a trail to the top. If you're going to be getting there a few days early or staying a few days after the tour, it's a great place to go on a hike. There are some really stunning views from the top. And here's our route for day 1. We start out in North Creek, head north over the river, go around through some nice woodland, back through Riparias, down through Weavertown, and then over through Johnsburg, and back on Pleasant Valley, Peaceful Valley Road, and stop by the waterfall on the way back to town. And then we're going to have a happy hour and a nice dinner at the hotel. Now on day 2, we're also going to cross over the Hudson River, go up north on what is one of my favorite rides. We're going to go north on Trout Brook Road, up through Loch Mueller, and then around to Irishtown, where this church is, St. Mary's. They only hold one service a year there on Memorial Day, but it's an absolutely wonderful location. The church and the little parsonage house next to it are about all that's left of Irishtown, which used to be a thriving community in the late 19th century. It's really fun to stop there. I think that's where we're having lunch on day 2. And you get to explore the cemetery. I have been told by locals that the most famous person buried in that cemetery is one of the guys who helped apprehend John Wilkes Booth after Lincoln's assassination, but I'm not sure exactly which headstone it is. This is also on that day 2 ride. This is on Wamsley Road, which is where I take folks to see my own secret overlook. Just another beautiful view of the high peaks, nice and quiet, lots of solitude. The roads are good. It's just a beautiful ride. And at another time, I stopped there to get a bike lean photo with the barn. You can see the antlers there over the barn door. This is up on Hoffman Hill Road, just before it turns into Irishtown Road. We're up by Loch Mueller, and Loch Mueller is nestled against the south side of the high peaks. It's a very isolated area. On the north side, the high peaks kind of run east to west through the park and divide it into north-south. And so on this southern part, up against the south side of the high peaks, it's pretty isolated. There's not a lot of houses up there. There's not a lot of people living up there. So it's a great place to ride. And that mountain you see in the background, that's the same mountain you saw just a moment ago with St. Mary's, that mountain behind St. Mary's that had all the foliage on it. That's the same hill. And this is what all of the grasslands look like in midsummer, early in midsummer in the Adirondacks. You've got flowers all over the place, including the purple, which is heather. Here we are leaving St. Mary's. We finished our lunch, and everybody's kind of trying to get back on their bikes with full stomachs. So we tend to start out kind of slow after we're done there. And you can see St. Mary's is just, it's a beautiful little spot. It's a beautiful church outside, built in 1849, and used every Sunday for many years, but now just one service a year. And it's just as pretty on the inside as it is on the outside. This is from one of our rest stops. This is a rest stop Chiclismo style. We try to have a great selection of foods for everyone, some snacks. We've got gluten-free, kind bars. We've got all sorts of energy bars, cookies, fruit. We'll have some bottled water and various drinks for you. And we also try to lend a nice little artistic touch with some flowers. And at the time we do these tours, there's no shortage of flowers, as you can see right there. Once we get to fall, the foliage is, well, you can see it's mind-blowing. Lots of people like to go to Vermont for fall foliage. I like to go to the Adirondacks because, in my opinion, it's just as beautiful. And also on this tour on day 2, we're going to be riding over Betsy Ross's bridge. This is not the Betsy Ross that made the flag, but she does live right by the bridge. And the first time I was up there, I didn't understand what this sign meant. And so the second time I'm riding along the road and there's a lady walking along the road. And so I stopped and I asked her, why is that called Betsy Ross's bridge? And she said, because Betsy lives in that house and I'm Betsy. So you may see Betsy when we're up there. Same with the moose. I can't absolutely promise, but you may see Betsy. But we will ride over her bridge. And here's our route for day 2. It's kind of a figure 8. We go over the river again from North Creek, through the woods, through Olmstedville, where there's a nice little store, a good place to stop for snacks or drink, and then up Trout Brook, around Loch Mueller. And if you look at the top of that map, you see there's two little ponds there. The one on the right is actually Loch Mueller. The one on the left is Oliver Pond. And the picture at the left there shows what the woods and the road going past Oliver Pond look like. You can, as you'll see, it's a pretty nice spot. So let's move on to day 3, which is kind of the queen stage of our tour. It is a big day in the saddle. It's 65 miles. We're going to ride northwest from North Creek up the highway because that's the only way to get up to Newcomb and to Hawas. But most of the climbing is in the first 25 miles of that day. Once we get up to Newcomb, we're going to have lunch at their Overlook Park, which has a wonderful view of the high peaks. And then we're going to backtrack a little, get on Upper Works Road into Hawas Road, and go up past the titanium mine and on up to the end of the road, because at the end of the road, that's where the ghost town is. Sadly, state of New York has removed most of the buildings. The chimneys are still there, but they removed the buildings because they were literally falling down and were a safety hazard. But what they've also done is they've totally redesigned the end of the road there where the trailhead is. And there's a number of historic exhibits and informational boards there that tell you a lot about the area. And it's also the spot where Teddy Roosevelt was staying in a hotel there when President McKinley died in 1901 and Roosevelt became president. And that's kind of the focus of our ride on day 3, the Roosevelt Trail. We're going to be going the same route that he came back on to get to North Creek, to get on the train. And it was during that horse and buggy ride between Newcomb and North Creek where McKinley died and Roosevelt actually became president. And the one of the drivers of the wagons knew that this had happened and knew that Roosevelt was president, but he didn't tell Roosevelt because he said later that he didn't really feel it was his place. But it's a beautiful area. Again, that's the Hudson River on your right. This is the road that goes to Tahawas. And on the right is another picture of the McIntyre furnace for the iron mine. You can see it's a beautiful area. The first time I was up there, I got to the end of the road to the parking lot at the trailhead. And the very end of the road is the trailhead for the south side of the high peaks for hikers. And when I got there, there was an older gentleman getting out of a pickup truck with a young boy. And I asked the older guy if he would get a picture of me with the trailhead sign. And he consented, and he did. And then we got to talking, and it turned out that he had grown up in Tahawas when the town was still active and living. And he told me it was about the best place that a boy could ever grow up, because you had the woods and the mountains right out your front door. In the summer, there was hunting, fishing, hiking, camping. In the winter, snowshoe, cross-country ski, and just a fantastic place to grow up. And it made me a little jealous because every time I go up there, I don't want to leave. And once you do get to Tahawas, you can walk down to this stream, which is the Hudson River. And you can literally jump from rock to rock across the Hudson River. This is the headwaters, and its real source is a lake called Lake Henderson that's just upstream from here. There's Lake Tier in the Clouds has been called the source, but that's way up on one of the mountains. But it's also kind of a vernal pond, so it's dry some part of the year. But Lake Henderson is full all year, and so this is really the first spot here by Tahawas that the Hudson is a year-round river. Also on this day, before we leave North Creek, we're going to be going to the North Creek Depot Museum. North Creek is a skiing destination and has been for almost 100 years. Gore Mountain is in North Creek, which is a very popular ski destination. And because that's the one claim to fame for North Creek, and the other claim to fame is Roosevelt's journey. That's what most of the exhibits in the museum are about. This lady giving you the tour in this picture is the director of the museum, and she's lived in North Creek all her life. Another shot that also features the Hudson River. We're crossing the Hudson on Upper Works Road, and this is only, I don't know, 5 miles, 6 miles south of that last picture into Hollis, where the stream was so narrow you could jump across it. You can see how it's grown in just that couple of miles. And once again, here's the high peaks. And you've got my bike sitting on that pile of titanium mine tailings that lines the road. And here's our route for day 3. It's an out and back. It's on the highway for most of the way because that's the only way to get up there. But it is a highway through the wilderness. It doesn't usually have much traffic, and it's incredibly scenic. And here's a couple of shots on the right. My friend Dave Beals riding north on 28N, and a warning that you may see a moose. So let's move on to day 4. And it's time to leave North Creek. We're going to go down to Chestertown to the Friends Lake Inn, our next lodging place. And this shot is from last season on one of the tours when we had a couple of days that were rained out. So I had to rejigger some of the routes on the fly so that we still gave everybody a nice sample of scenery. And that is Stoney Creek. Yeah, that's Stoney Creek on Warrensburg Road as we ride north from the village of Stoney Creek. You may have seen this photo on Facebook. This is Friends Lake Road. And once again, that's the Hudson River. It grows rapidly as it goes south through the Adirondacks. And that picture on the left is where we'll stop for a rest stop. Sometimes it's a rest stop, sometimes it's a lunch stop, but it's right on the banks of the Hudson. It's owned by my friends Jen and Don, who were in that picture toward the beginning of the slideshow at North Creek Falls. And they have very kindly given us permission to use this spot right next to the river. And there's another shot from that same spot. And there's a Hudson River in the background. Also on day 4, we're going to be passing Huckleberry Mountain as we ride through Johnsburg. On this next season's tours, your group would be riding the opposite direction on this road. So just kind of mentally flip these folks and have them ride in the opposite direction. But this is pretty typical Adirondack landscape. You've got a lot of lakes that have kind of semi-filled in and lots of dead foliage in those lakes. But beyond that, you've got mountains like this, and that's pretty typical scenery. And this is, I think it's a Circle B. Let's move the chat box here. Yep, Circle B. And this is on Potterbrook Road near Friends Lake. We're also going to be going by here on the tours. And while I'm thinking of it, I know that Julie checked in here. I can't see everybody, but Gary may be with us here too. We've got 2 great guides for this tour this year. There's Julie West and Gary Schiavi. And I would just like to call them out here. They're here somewhere. And they are both from the North Creek area. They have a lot of local knowledge, actually a lot more than I do. So I'm sure they're going to make a great tour for you. Let's get back into PowerPoint. And so that brings us to day 5, where we're going to ride out of the Friends Lake Inn through Chestertown, stop at the Schoolhouse Ice Cream Parlor in Chestertown, and then we're going to explore the Lake District. And this is Scroon Lake, which is the largest of the lakes in that area. Beautiful views across the lake. This is East Shore Road. And that rider is Drew Capabianca. He's also a friend of mine, and he is the owner and operator of The Hub, which is on Brant Lake, which is one of our stops on the ride. Drew is pretty much a local entrepreneurial genius, if you ask me. He bought the old town hall, and he's converted it into a combination restaurant, tavern, wine bar, ice cream parlor, bike shop, live music venue, and I think that's all. He also bought the mountain behind the hub, and has built 6 miles of mountain bike trails on that, and has pretty much made the hub into the social center of the whole area. Super nice guy. And here's the inside of the hub on the right. This is the bar, and we're going to stop there. He's got all kinds of stuff that will give you a good time. It's a great place to stop on a ride before you get to the end. And in the left is seriously, the actual giant chicken of Chestertown, which is on Route 9 in town. And we will stop there for just a calm little group photo, like these people are posing for. And up on Beaver Pond Road, Beaver Pond is not officially one of the 3 lakes. I'm not sure exactly what differentiates it from the others, what makes it a pond. It is still pretty large and has some beautiful views. Lots of vacation homes up there. Always a nice place to ride past. And another one of the lakes on the tour is Brant Lake, just a little smaller than Scroon. This is on Palisades Road, which goes all along the north shore. The highway goes along the south shore. So on Palisades, it's very quiet, very little traffic, and a wonderful place to ride your bike. This is John, one of our guides on the tour last year. And he was a little bit overheated. So when we stopped by the Hudson, he decided that he would get cooled off. This is also on our day 5 ride. This is getting onto Beaver Pond Road. This section had been freshly paved. And you've got great roads, great scenery. You've got friendly people. You've got drivers that are used to seeing cyclists. They respect cyclists. So it's a nice place to go. And the last of the 3 lakes is Loon Lake. And this photo shows that. And this is toward, I believe that's the first lake we go past on that day's route. And here it is. Yep, we go up past Loon, around through Pottersville. There's an ice cream place just north of Pottersville, in case you want to stop for some of that. And then we ride up to Adirondack, where the village store is, the place with the giant pencils, around past Beaver Pond, along the whole length of Brant Lake, and then back around to the Friends Lake Inn. And that brings us to day 6. Final day when we're riding from Chestertown back around in a loop to the north. That's shorter, it's only 23 miles. And it gets us back to North Creek, where we've left our cars at the Phoenix Inn and Resort. And on this day's route, we will be stopping at Mead and Beckham Mountains. They're privately owned, but the owner has graciously built trails on the mountains and carted benches and picnic tables up to the top of the mountain and put up interpretive signs. So it's a great place to say goodbye to the Adirondacks. This is Mead, and then we cross over the saddle to Beckham and then come back down. So you've got pretty spectacular views to all 4 points of the compass from up there. This is my nominee for the world's largest mailbox. Those are my friends Dan and Roxanne again. Now, this tree, I did some research. At first, when myself and friends rode past it, we were trying to figure out where in the Adirondacks you'd see a tree like that. And the answer was no place, because they carted this thing in from California. This is on the trail up to the top of Mead and Beckham. Another shot from the top of Mead, another great view. This is on the way out of North Creek. I've always loved going past this garden. These people obviously spend a huge amount of time because they live across the street from this barn, and it always looks like this around the barn. And I've never seen them out there gardening, but they must spend a tremendous amount of time, because I know it doesn't look like this naturally. Another nice shot from one of the isolated roads that we'll be on. And we got a final farewell group shot in the garden at the back of the Friends Lake Inn. and celebrating a great tour. And it was a great tour. Some great roads, great scenery, nice people. And there's our route on the final day. Only 23 miles, but still lots of fun. And you get another chance to stop at the ice cream place in Pottersville. And here's all the details. You can find all these details on our website. And I think,
I'll post the link to the tour right now while we're.
yeah, if you could put that in the chat.
And yeah, people, if we want to, did you want to introduce the two tour guides are here?
I think I did during the show, but let's see if they're here.
You
But
want to say hello,
for the
hello.
slideshow, that's the end. And that's the sunset over the Hudson from the bridge in North Creek. Just the whole area is one of my favorite places. So let's go back to the details here. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Did you want to talk a little about the accommodations each night, Dave?
Yeah, sure. Our first 3 nights are going to be spent at the Phoenix Inn and Resort. It's in North Creek. It's a large hotel, a resort that has restaurant, tavern, pool, very nice patio with a fire pit right out back where you can relax after the day's ride. It's right across the street from the museum at the depot. Diana, the owner, very nice lady, works hard to make sure that we have a great time there. That's the first 3 nights. The last 2 nights are going to be at the Friends Lake Inn, which is in Chestertown. Actually, it's a few miles outside of town. It's on Friends Lake, which is a no motor lake. So it's nice and quiet. They have a very nice restaurant, wonderful rustic furnishings and Adirondack rusting decor inside. We'll be there for 2 nights. They have hiking trails right out the back of the restaurant, right at the back of the hotel. You can walk a few hundred yards the other way and you're actually on the lake shore. They've got a place there. They've got kayaks you can use on Friends Lake if you want to. They have a wonderful restaurant with some great food. That's where we're having our final evening's dinner. And both those places have websites that, Lauren, do you by chance have the links for the?
I have put them in the chat window, Dave. They're already up.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Darren. And I see that there's Gary right there at the top, one of our guides who's waving. And there's Julie, the other one who's waving. And they could probably answer questions about North Creek better than I could because they live there or very close by. So that's about it.
Well, one question I was going to ask,
Sure.
I would imagine that the roads are pretty quiet, right? Like it's a pretty quiet area in terms of traffic and so forth.
Yeah, traffic is very light.
We've routed the tour on back roads wherever possible, avoiding the highways. As I mentioned for day 3, when we go up to Hawas, really some of these places we go to, the only way to get there is on a road that's designated as a highway. But that being said, Route 28N from North Creek up to Newcomb does not have a lot of traffic. You will not see a lot of cars, especially at the times we're riding.
Okay, great. I can't wait. I actually have not been to this area. I've only been a little bit, but I went up through it, but I have not cycled there. So I'm hoping to cycle there this year.
And if anybody else has questions, I'm happy to answer them as best I can.
Dave, we had a question that came in asking if all the roads are paved. I believe this one is an entirely paved set of roads. I don't think we do any gravel. Is that correct?
We do have on this tour, on day 4, we do have about 2 miles of well-maintained dirt road because that's a dirt road that goes past North Creek Falls. And at the end of the road, when we go to Hawas, about the last mile of that road before the trailhead parking lot is fine grained gravel, but it's a brand new road, so it's in very good repair. But those are the only unpaved portions to the whole tour. So you got about 3-4 miles of unpaved. Let's see here.
If someone were to plan go to like the Adirondacks for the trip, what would you do before and afterwards? It's kind of I always like to talk about trips like with bookends, like kind of to plan a whole area, a trip in the area.
Okay, there's no end to things to do, especially if you're in North Creek. There's rafting on the Hudson, either on the Hudson through town or in the Hudson Gorge, which is a spectacular area that's north of there on the Hudson between North Creek and Newcomb. Also on the rail line the old rail line that goes up to the mine, there's a company called Revolution Rail that now has rail cars on that route that you pedal. So if you're not tired of pedaling, you can go ride on one of those. They also have a rail car ride that goes right from the depot that's across from the Phoenix. What else is there? There's a garnet mine that offers tours. There's hiking.
Julie mentioned Lake Placid. That's not very far from the Olympics, where the Olympics are, right? The Winter Olympics.
Lake Placid is actually on the north side of that line of the high peaks. So it's about a 90-minute drive up to Lake Placid. But another place you can go, which is about 40 minutes west in Blue Mountain Lake, is the Adirondack Experience Museum, which is truly a world-class museum. It is amazing what they have there. Everything from a hermit's cabin from the Adirondacks to changing exhibitions to locomotives, some of the first cars that were used in the Adirondacks, all kinds of exhibits that handle the history of the Adirondacks. And that's a fantastic place to go. Also over toward Pottersville, there's a place called Natural Stone Bridge and Caves, which is where Trout Brook comes down to Scroon Lake and is carved some pretty unique features in the rock on the way down to the lake. There's also, as I mentioned before, at the hotel, they have kayaks for rent. Maybe Julie would like to throw in a word
She's
here.
been putting all kinds of stuff in here. She's, go ahead, Julie, you can speak. You may speak.
Okay. I was just typing in on also Gore Mountain does their gondola thing. And they do it all summer, but in the fall it's especially pretty. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff to do. I like the wilderness areas better. But if you've not been in the area, it might be worth going around the mountains to Lake Placid, because literally where we will be in Tahoe is only maybe 12 miles from the other end where Lake Placid is. Literally as the crow flies. It's so short, but it's an hour and a half to drive. So anyway, there's Blue Mountain Lake, the museum, both the museums are incredible. Swimming.
It does seem like an area that people, we spend a lot of time in some of the other areas in the Northeast, but it does seem like an area that it really has a lot of exploring to do.
Yeah. The lakes are so beautiful.
And some of the Adirondack great camps would be worth a visit. There's a couple of those that are very, very interesting to see.
In fact, Santanoni, we're riding up to Newcomb, and Great Camp Santanoni is in Newcomb. We don't go there on this tour, but again, it's if you're looking for extra places to go to, you could easily spend a week doing our tour and then spend a whole another week in the North Creek and Chestertown area and do something different every day.
And they've got also nice dinner boat rides on Lake George and Racket Lake also, which does, I think they do dinner. Yeah, they do.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of for something different.
We have a question about what kind of transfer someone would take from Albany to the start of the trip.
Okay, you'd want to rent a car at the airport. If you're flying in, you'd want to rent a car at the airport to get up there. And from the airport up to North Creek is maybe an hour and a half. There is an airport in Sardinia Lake, which is west of Lake Placid. I don't know a lot about the services there. I live in Schenectady, just west of Albany, so all the flying I do is out of Albany. It is kind of an isolated area, but that's the charm. That's part of the reason that I call it the greatest place to ride that you've never heard of, because it's amazing how it's off the beaten track, and yet it is so close to so many million people here in the Northeast. Anybody else?
And how far is it from like major metropolitan cities like Boston? I mean, is that how people driving up
From Boston, it's going to be about 3.5 hours.
Okay.
From New York City, it's going to be a little over 3. From someplace like Syracuse or Buffalo, 2 to 3. It's
Dave,
actually,
I think you drive fast. You must be drive fast, Dave.
right. Well, I can go to Google right now. I do 75 to 80 on the thruway, and people pass me now like I'm standing still. So, Julie, I'm totally willing to be corrected. If you've driven,
gorgeous photos, though, Dave. Oh my God.
thank you,
really.
I appreciate that.
Super pictures.
Let me. I mean, I can go Google here on the map and figure out exactly how long it would be from New York City, but it's at least 3.5 hours from either New York or Boston. Julie, have you driven to either place, or Gary?
Oh yeah, Boston is about 5 hours for me.
For
yeah.
you? Okay, all right. Then I
Syracuse,
stand,
Two and a half.
corrected. Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah, and I would
You
say New York.
can also sit corrected if you want, Dave.
Okay, I'll just keep sitting here,
You don't have
because if I get,
It's
well,
okay. It's all right. We all will.
If
I
I-
just was curious. I was just throwing out some questions,
if I stand to
okay,
be
well-
corrected, you'll see I'm not
Well,
wearing.
let's talk about some food items here. What are we going to eat up, and what are we going to eat in the Adirondacks?
Well, in North Creek, they have a nice tavern at the Phoenix.
Good beer up there.
I'm sorry.
Good beer.
Well, yeah. Why else would I go there?
Okay.
There's a number of craft breweries in upstate New York. There's at least half a dozen in Albany. No, I'm sorry, Drew. Fat Tire is not one of the breweries. There's Adirondack Brewery, Pub and Brewery in Lake George. There's Lake Placid Brewery in, where else? Lake Placid. There's a great place where I know the owners, Paradox, which is right off the Northway at exit 29. They make a variety of great beers and just hugely expanded their brewery up there. That's also a great place to ride from. I'm afraid there are not many vineyards in the Adirondacks.
There's got to be some ice cream, right? Right, Dave?
Oh yeah. There's a great ice cream place.
I'm pulling stuff out of you. We like cyclists like ice cream and beer and.
Well, there's
much that's
a great ice cream place. There's a great ice cream place just north out of Pottersville that we're going to ride past twice.
Good.
There's some great food at the Adirondack store. The pub has a great selection of regional craft brews, and they also have ice cream and Italian ices. There's a great place we're going to stop for lunch in Chestertown.
Julie says chocolate. Good, Julie. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
She's
Well,
saying all
I'm-
the right things.
Okay. Well, she lives up there. She'd probably, Julie, how long have you lived there?
30 some years.
Okay.
Let's-
All right.
yeah.
Where do you
Oh,
live,
wow.
Julie? What town do you live in?
So I live in North River. It's 5 miles upriver from North Creek.
So what do you call somebody who's from the Adirondacks or Adirondacan?
I don't know. Native, except I think you have to be like 3rd or 4th generation to actually be
Okay. Yeah. What
considered
is
native.
okay? There's some, but in Maine, if you're not born in Maine, you're from down east or whatever they say, or down, what do they say? But the Adirondacks is a pretty strong native history of people like who are from native Adirondacks.
Yeah, there's a lot of old timers. We'll be going by their places for sure.
Now, what about
but-
what about the indigenous history? There must be quite a bit.
Yeah, there is some history for sure. A lot of it's in the naming, but I think a lot of the native people, the indigenous people did not choose to live here because they knew better when they could just live 50 miles south and come up here to hunt.
Oh,
Yeah, which is what, so around the edges of the Adirondacks, there was more pressure. The north end, there's a actually reservation up there, but yeah, within the Adirondacks, they knew better than to live here. Yeah, the Akwesasne, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and there's also the name, the Adirondacks, supposedly is from one of the local indigenous languages and means bark eaters.
What does it mean?
Bark eaters, as in tree bark.
Bark eaters.
Yeah, it was kind of a derogatory name that the white people gave them.
Yeah, that does
So-
sound a little bit derogatory.
Yeah.
Oh, where else is there to eat? In North Creek, there's Bar Vino, which is a very nice wine and tapas place. There's also Beck's, which is a German-themed tavern that's over off of Peaceful Valley Road, where they also have a fire pit outside. There's a couple of nice places over in Loon Lake. And what we did on one tour last year was we organized a trip over to Loon Lake to eat. There's Sticks and Stones, which also has a outdoor dining. They're on the highway south of Loon Lake. There's also Flanagan's, which is the local pizza place, which is, but that's really selling it short to call it just a pizza place. It's where everybody in Scroon hangs out, and they have all kinds of great food and drink. And Julie, Gary, am I missing someplace?
We want
Adirondack-
to leave some places for a surprise, of course. So
Well, Basil and Wicks has gone to their pop-up format, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to change. It's a COVID thing.
Okay.
so
Might
tell us a
say
little
that.
bit about the give us a little history. What about any historical things that we need to know about the Adirondacks, history and culture?
Well, we're going to be seeing quite a few of them. The depot in North Creek is where Roosevelt caught the train. I guess I need to go into a little bit of detail about that story. That in 1901, President McKinley was in Buffalo for the Great Exposition, and some anarchist guy ran out and shot him and wounded him seriously. And McKinley was in the hospital. Teddy Roosevelt was his vice president, but McKinley seemed to be on the mend. So Roosevelt, who was a big outdoorsman, went up to the Adirondacks to this hotel that was in Tahawas and went to climb Mount Marcy, which is the highest peak in New York State. And while he was on Mount Marcy, the word came up from Buffalo that McKinley had taken a turn for the worse. So they sent a guide running up Mount Marcy, which is a lot tougher than it might sound, to find Roosevelt and tell him, you got to get to Buffalo right away because McKinley is going downhill. So Roosevelt comes back down to the hotel and it's evening by the time he gets there, and they organize a horse and buggy relay to get him to North Creek, which is the nearest train station. And so he ends up riding by horse and buggy in the middle of the night from Tahawas all the way down to North Creek, which is about 38 miles in order to catch the train. And while he was on his way to North Creek, McKinley died, making Roosevelt the president. So when he got to North Creek, he found out that he was now the president of the United States, and got on the train and headed off to Buffalo to be sworn in and become president. So that's the major historical story in that area. Another historical story is that of the great camps, because in the Gilded Age, late 1800s, you had a lot of very rich folks who would build what they called camps. But if you saw one of these camps, it's pretty much just a mansion. They're mansions, they're whole colonies. You may have heard me mention Santanoni. There's also Sagamore. There were others around Blue Mountain Lake, and North Creek had a railroad going to North Creek. So many of these people would go to North Creek, get off the train to reach their great camps, and then they would get on stagecoaches and go west from there through Indian Lake, and on Lake Durant they would get on an excursion boat and to get to Blue Mountain Lake to get to their camps. So that's another historical aspect. There were also many people who were guides and trappers in the early European days in the Adirondacks. And there are exhibits about them at the Adirondack Experience Museum. North Creek was also a very popular, very early ski destination. And that's why we go to the Depot Museum before we do that day 3 ride. It's one of the reasons. They have all kinds of exhibits there about what it was like to go skiing at Gore Mountain 100 years ago. The railroad would organize ski trains in the winter. So you would have an entire train full of people from down south, New York City, Albany, who would come up to North Creek to go skiing. And this was when they still used wooden skis and various other very primitive equipment. So it's fascinating to look at that stuff and think to yourself, I can't believe people would go down a giant mountain on these. That's another historical aspect. Julie, feel free to throw something in here, or Gary.
I mean, we could talk for literally days. I mean, the area is so rich in history.
Yeah.
You know, the ghost town, you know, Tawas that gets visited, you know, was one of the premier titanium dioxide mines in the country. They, you know, Dave mentioned it casually, but they had like an entire company town there, complete with the school, newspapers. You know, they had this rich culture in the area. And you know, you're visiting all these, you know, things that happened in the past that they're largely returned back to wilderness areas. So it's a lot of fun to go. You know, you're definitely taking a step back in time. It's a fun place to visit.
There's also a huge logging history, river driving history on the Hudson River. Some of the more dangerous river driving, one of the most dangerous rivers in the Northeast as far as for river drivers because of the Hudson River Gorge that they sent the logs through. So pretty interesting history as they logged the entire Adirondacks, which has now been rewilded, they call it. But yeah,
there's very few of the areas that you would see on this tour that are not second growth or even third growth. And it was fascinating to me to go to the Adirondack Museum and see some of the photos on exhibit there that would have a building that I recognized from doing my rides that is in the middle of the forest now. And I mean, totally mature trees, 60, 80, 90 feet tall. And yet in these photos from the late 1800s, you'll see the same building easily recognizable, but everything to the horizon is clear cut.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quickly because Julie, who was speaking right before Dave, I want to highlight that Julie's been a whitewater guide up in the area since the late 1990s. So, you know, you're not just getting history, you're getting this great, rich experience. The guides are deeply invested in the area. They know this. And, you know, so if you're somebody who wants to come, we didn't talk about whitewater, but, you know, if you're somebody and you want to do that, I've taken my kids, it's great. It's a cool experience. And your guide on the tour, you know, is an expert in not only, you know, in the area, but also in that activity as well.
thank you.
Well, I can't wait. It sounds fantastic. It all sounds great. Great trip.
Anybody else want to know anything else?
Oh, it looks like we're getting, some people have to leave, so I don't want to take people longer than an hour. This was really great. Christine's wave, Christine Classen from Canada. Say hello, Christine. Say hello. Unmute yourself. She's our official new tour guide of Quebec.
Yeah, hi everyone. I hope to do.
What's the date of your presentation? I forgot.
I'm not sure right away, but we're gonna set it. It's gonna be
Okay.
in later April, but I'm excited to do it. And it's gonna be about the trip a little bit, but we're gonna talk about the experience of learning language in an immersive cycling environment, if you wish. And so we'll be talking a little bit about, like, because my tour is New France, so Quebecois French versus European French and all the beautiful idiosyncrasies and cultural pieces around the differences. So excited to do that.
Excellent. Oh, excellent. So nice to be reunited with you doing tours again, Christine. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We don't want to keep you over an hour. This was great. Dave, thank you so much. I really,
welcome.
such a great trip, such a great creation. So proud of all your work and all your photographs. And you next week, we're going to go to Luca's Mediterranean Cafe. That should be fun. A little bit of a different feel, a little vibe. And then the Finger Lakes and then the island hopping. So we're usually doing them on Thursday nights, unless there's something conflicting on Thursday. I think a couple weeks ago it was St. Patty's Day. You can't conflict with St. Patty's Day. So anyway, well, listen, happy April Fools. Think of your best April Fool joke for tomorrow. It's my son's 25th birthday, so I'm gonna have to give him a call. And thank you all so much. Spread the word, tell your friends. This is a great way to meet everybody. And we'll just keep doing these as long as we can, as long as we have a great audience, which we have. So thank you all so much, Dave. Thank you so much, Darren, Tiffany, Christine, and Julie, and everybody else. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Ciao. Thank you.
Ciao. Good night, everybody.
Everybody.
Bonsoir.
Thank you. Bonsoir. Buonanotte.
Bye.
Ciao.